Alright, well hello and welcome everyone. This is Untitled Maverick Currencies, and this video will be actually talking about US dollar. As you know, US dollar has been on quite a run, and this is a good time to take a look at not only against the major currency pairs, but also take a look at dollar across the board and see where is the next opportunity, or are we at a bit of a breakout point in other currency pairs as well. So let's get on to it. Starting with the dollar, as you know, it's very commonly referenced the dollar with the DXY as the dollar index. One of the things I always wanted to remind that this dollar index is heavily weighted with the euro US dollar, about 57.6%. So it's not really giving us a full picture of what the dollar is doing. It's actually giving us a good idea about what the dollar is doing against the euro, but it's not really giving us a true picture of what the dollar is doing across the board. So as we take a look at DXY, again, we see that this is off to the races, and this is now at the levels that we haven't seen for the last 20 years. The euro actually fell to the lowest level against the dollar in the 20 years. So again, we are seeing these levels that are very much stretched. So the question is this whole dollar move is actually done, or there's actually better opportunities in other dollar crosses as well. So this is where we need to pay attention to see what the dollar is doing against other currencies as well. So starting with a dollar CAD, and one of the things you'll notice is that we are not really at the levels in certain currencies. Going back to the 2020, the COVID times, we actually have not claimed back those levels yet. Even though the DXY looks very extended, it's just because the euro dollar is very extended. But there are other currency pairs that are actually on the verge of a breakout. So let's take a look at dollar CAD. You can see dollar CAD actually broke that support back in November 2020 and had a big plunge. And so far, you can see that we actually still holding that level. And this 130.60 area has been tested many times. So let's go zoom in on a daily chart. I mean, we have seen some massive runs and pullbacks around that area. And just to look at this little rally here, I mean, this was setting up for a nice breakout, and again, pull back further. We got another retest, and then we are stalling once again. So this is again showing it to us that there's actually dollar is not really as strong as what we see when we look at DXY. I mean, there's definitely opportunities in the other areas as well. And if we actually take a look at the dollar, if you take a look at dollar basket as we do, all the major currencies put it together, we get an equally weighted basket. You can see that there is an uptrend, but the prices are not going parabolic as we are seeing with the DXY or the Euro USD. So there is an uptrend, but there's a measured move. And you'll notice that it's just not the US dollar that has been, reaping the benefits here. If you take a look at Canadian dollar, the Canadian dollar has actually been following the very exact path that the dollar is on. So this is again giving us a unique opportunity just to not be very overly concentrated on one currency, but just to find out what currencies are actually leading the charts and using those currencies to follow that trend. So CAD and the dollar has been on this level, and you can see where dollar CAD itself hasn't really broken those levels. So if there is a divergence about to take place, again, this is the level that I'm watching very closely. And if it gets above this level, again, 3 times we have tested and failed. So this is where you have to be very cautious and look for confirmation before we want to jump on in. And once it clears this area, again, now we're looking at about 133 to 134 area as the next level of resistance. So there's a nice little 400 pip window, which again, is continued to be tested on, but still has not been broken yet. Now, you can actually say the same story against other crosses as well. And again, Aussie dollar is a good example. And you can see that this support, this prior resistance, which is now the support, held in quite nicely. I mean, last year we did pull back, but then did rally off that level. Again, early this year we rallied off that level. And then here back in May, we dipped below, and then we actually rallied once again. So this, you can see the constant struggle that this Aussie dollar has been gone through. And then here we are falling back lower again. But this time it actually has confirmed the breakdown to the downside. So we are noticing that the US dollar crosses are actually slowly following that path where they are breaking on their individual times instead of trying to break those levels at the same time. Unlike Euro US dollar, you can see that that was a big break that we had in just the past couple of days. Went from about 104 now down to 101.87. So these are again historic levels, but this seems to be more of a euro story. I mean, euro basket itself. I mean, if we just take a look at euro itself, is down 0.61%. So there is the euro is actually the weakest currency. And then if you look at the strongest currency today, well, dollar is not the strongest. Well, dollar is on par with the Canadian dollar, and then following by the Aussie. So this again gives us a unique picture of where things are, so we don't have to be overly concentrated into one and just understand that this could be just a euro story. And now guaranteed, we can, if we take a look at some currency pairs like Eurocad, we'll be following the same patterns. Eurocad is actually broken nicely at 134, and it's actually breaking down further. So Eurocad looks very similar. Now take a look at euro versus the Aussie, and this seems to be again following the same path that in the past 3 days. You can see that this has gone from 153 down to 149. So this way it gives us a picture that, okay, well, dollar is not really the one that's leading the charge. There's actually other currencies as well, so which will give us a good opportunities across the board. Now, dollar Swiss franc, this is another currency pair that if you take a look at it from the previous levels perspective, I mean, this thing has not really broken any levels. The COVID times when the dollar really took off, we haven't really broken any of those levels yet. So it seems like the only place that we have seen the biggest jump is dollar yen, which again, we know that it's not just a dollar story, but it's also the yen story. Because of that policy divergence. Now, with the euro, I mean, Eurozone has a lot of problems ahead of itself as well, and they are the also one that haven't really made any changes to the monetary policy. So there's a bit of a policy divergence. That's where the biggest moves are coming from. And here's a euro basket, and then boom, we have a pretty big, ugly week this week. So until we actually see things develop or change. And again, this is where all the central bank events are very important, because that's where we'll be able to see if there's any sort of policy change, policy guidance, forward guidance that we can get. Otherwise, the markets will continue to hammer down on this policy divergence. I mean, look at dollar yen is the greatest example. I mean, there's that divergence there. Now, let's talk about euro Swiss franc. That's another good example. You know, so the Bank of the Switzerland has actually just raised rates, where euro has not. So you can see that there's a divergence taking place. And here we are, euro is actually fallen below the parity level against Swiss franc, which again, if you look back in time, you won't be able to see that this currency has traded that low against euro. So as you can see that this is a euro story across the board, but it indeed brings us a good opportunity in some of these currency pairs. But we don't want to be married to those levels yet. We want to be looking for confirmation. So maybe look for a break and a retest, and then we'll try to follow that. Again, dollar CAD, it's still on my watch list, but not ready to pull the trigger yet, unless we get a confirmed breakout onto the upside. We had a confirmed breakout on the Aussie dollar, which we got that last week. So again, that's what we want to see. We want to get a confirmed breakdown before we can jump on that direction. Now, Kiwi dollar, well, you can see that Kiwi dollar has been moving lower way before any of the other currencies gave up, because now there's a relative weakness in the Kiwi. So this is where we can take a look at all these levels from a broader perspective, and then find out where is the next opportunity, where is the policy divergence that we can take advantage of, and those are the charts that we need to pay attention to. Now, with the euro dollar, we just have, whenever we get through these extreme readings, we need to now then look for any sort of capitulation sign. So capitulation is where we get a big aggressive sell-off, which then results with a bit of a reversal. So as you can go back in time, again, we have seen these kind of sell-offs before. You can see how euro dollar sold from 140 down to like 104. I mean, that was a massive move. but you can see this is where the price action, it took a lot longer to really bottom out yet. And right now, as the price action looks extended, there's no reason to jump on this one, but there's really no reason to exit either, because this is where I won't be surprised if the euro dollar hits that parity level before it decides which way it wants to go. Even that parity level is not going to hold because of that selling pressure that we have. I mean, euro Swiss franc is a good example. I mean, it did hover around that parity level for a while, and then here you go, last 2 days, it also is below that parity level as well. So a massive movement happening across the board, and this is where important to be in touch with the markets and keep an eye on the technical versus the macro, and this is where we'll probably find the biggest move. Thanks for watching.